Hey everyone, today I've got some stuff that'll keep you on edge. Like, subscribe, and let's dive in. My childhood neighbor used to hand feed me over her 10-foot fence. I just realized it was grooming. 27-year-old female. This is a story about how a childhood memory that felt innocent, almost magical, gets reframed the moment an adult sees it for what it actually was. OP is 27 now, and she's come to a reckoning with something she never saw coming. I grew up with a house directly behind ours, separated by a fence I mentioned in the title. It was impossibly tall, at least 10 feet, with no way to see through. My parents never discussed it. When I asked, I got vague answers that made it clear the topic was off limits. The house became a mystery. When I was around 7 or 8, I started finding treats at the base of that fence. Cookies, candy, homemade things. One day, while playing nearby, she appeared at the top. She was tall. Impossibly tall from my perspective, and held something out to me over the fence. I took it from her hand. I felt special, chosen. From then on, I went to the fence on purpose. There was usually something there. Sometimes she'd be there too. I never told my parents. I knew they wouldn't approve. It felt like my secret, my hidden friend who only I knew about. A few months ago, I brought this up in therapy. Just mentioned it as a childhood memory. My therapist's expression changed. She asked careful questions about what happened, if there was inappropriate touching. Then she said the word, grooming. She explained how predators operate, how they isolate kids and make them feel special. That word rewired everything. Suddenly, all those memories looked different. And that's where the post hooks you hard. Everything she thought was innocent and special, every treat, every moment of feeling chosen and recognized, just became sinister in retrospect. But this wasn't a one-time thing. This was the beginning of something that would happen again and again, every single time she ventured near that fence. Because predators don't just make one move. They test, they probe, they wait for the next opportunity. And they're patient. Very patient. The treats came regularly. I'd find something new at the fence line. Cookies, gummy bears, juice boxes. They were waiting for me. I felt like I had a secret friendship nobody else knew about. She had this presence. I never fully saw her face, just glimpses over that tall fence. But she seemed magical. The way she'd appear at just the right moment, like she was watching for me. Then one day, she didn't just leave the treat. She was at the top of the fence, reaching down with one hand to give me a candy bar. Our hands touched. It felt huge, like I'd been chosen. After that, contact became more frequent. She'd hand things directly to me. Sometimes she'd lean further over, and I could see more of her face. She seemed larger than life, like a fairy tale character living behind the wooden wall. My parents had no idea. I never told them. It felt like my secret, something special between me and this mysterious neighbor. I was proud of it. It made me feel grown up, trusted. Looking back, I was just a kid who had no idea how carefully she was reeling me in. And that sense of being chosen, of being special, of being watched, that was exactly what she wanted OP to feel. That's how it works. That's how the trap gets set. That's the first part of the hook. Because once she had that hook in, the next phase could begin. She wasn't just about treats anymore. She was about getting close, about learning things, about making OP feel like she had someone, an adult who cared about her in this secret, special way that made her feel important. And that's when things started to shift in ways I couldn't see at the time. The treats got fancier, expensive chocolates, imported candies we didn't buy at home. She started asking me questions about my parents, about whether they let me go places, about what I liked to do when nobody was watching. Now I realized she was mapping out my life, looking for gaps. The physical contact increased. She'd lean further over the fence, sometimes touch my hand when giving me something. Once, she adjusted a strand of my hair. I felt special and uncomfortable at once, but I didn't have words for it. No other kid had a secret friend who gave them gifts and asked about their private life. My parents had no idea. I kept it from them. Not because they told me to, but she did. She'd say, "This is just between us, right?" Or, "Your mom might not understand how nice I'm being." She was building a wall between me and the people who should have protected me. Looking back with my therapist, these are textbook isolation tactics. The gifts, the attention, the physical boundary testing, the secrecy, all deliberate. I wasn't special. I was being groomed. And this is where people in the thread started to see what I couldn't. Do you remember if there was ever a time when she mentioned anything odd? Or did she ever try to get you to do things or go places with her? Just wondering what the extent of contact actually was. This is textbook grooming behavior. The isolation, keeping you from telling parents, the special treatment, food, building a sense of obligation. This is predatory playbook stuff. Please report this to police. Do you have any memories of what happened after she handed you food? Like, do the memories go black? That detail matters legally. But here's where it gets real. Decades later, OP found herself back in that neighborhood. I made contact with the neighbor. She's denying everything, but I found something in her mailbox. I drove past the old house on a whim. The fence is gone. Just gone. Like it never existed. But she's still there. Same house, same overgrown garden. I almost didn't recognize her at first. Older, smaller somehow. But then she stepped out and her face just froze. She said my name. Just my name, like a question. I felt sick. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I acted casual, said something vague about being in the neighborhood, asked if she remembered that kid from down the street. She smiled, that same smile, and she said, "Of course I remember you. You were so sweet." Sweet. That's the word she used. I left and sat in my car for an hour. Then I went back. I had to know. Her mailbox is old, falling apart, name still visible on it. I wasn't thinking straight. I just needed something, anything. There was a piece of mail from a community organization addressed to her. I took a photo of the name, the address, everything. I've started documenting. Dates, times, the exact location. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I know I can't just let this go. Not anymore. The comment section lit up with a chorus of voices. "I'm so sorry you went through this. Predators rely on kids not understanding what's happening. You were not at fault. Please document everything and reach out to RAIN or local authorities. This." And OP, take screenshots of any interactions, social media, etc. Write down dates, times of memories as precisely as you can, and contact your local police non-emergency line. Even if nothing comes of it legally, you'll have created a report in case others come forward. How are you feeling now? Like, do you have any memory gaps from that time period? Or is it all coming back clearly? Just asking because some trauma victims experience dissociation. And suddenly, she held something concrete in her hands. Something real. Something that couldn't be forgotten again. She took action. I made contact with the neighbor. She's denying everything, but I found something in her mailbox. I finally contacted the police with everything I'd compiled over the years. Old photographs of the fence from when I was young, my therapy notes documenting the realizations, a detailed timeline of events spanning decades. The detective I spoke with said what I was describing fit the textbook definition of grooming. An isolated location, systematic trust building, escalating physical contact, enforced secrecy. Hearing it described so clinically made it all become real in a way I hadn't let myself fully feel before. This thing that felt magical and special to a child was actually calculated predation. After giving my statement, I decided to reach out to her directly, just to document her response. I wrote a letter and drove out there to drop it in her mailbox in person. That's when I saw it. An old photograph of me, maybe 7 years old, tucked inside the mailbox frame. The photo was dated from decades ago, from the exact period when the boundary violations were worst. Below the photo was a handwritten note in her handwriting. I remember everything. She kept a photo of me. All these years, she kept it. The detective took the photo and note as evidence. When she was questioned, she denied it all, claimed she didn't remember me at all, said it was all a misunderstanding. But the physical evidence was there. The fact that she still lived in that house, that she'd kept those things all this time, that she said my name without hesitation when she found my letter. It confirmed everything my therapist had been helping me understand. I wasn't special. I was chosen, and I was used. What's hard to sit with is understanding how predators operate. They don't hide behind masks or lurk in darkness. They're patient. They build relationships so slowly that the grooming doesn't look like grooming. It looks like kindness. They're betting on the simple fact that what a child experiences as friendship and specialness looks like nothing suspicious to the adults walking past. A tall woman handing treats over a fence. Treats positioned as a secret. What could be more innocent than that scene? Everything, as it turns out. And then they keep the evidence. They keep the photographs and notes, the physical proof of what they did, which in itself is its own kind of confession. The fact that she's still there is insane. In your old neighborhood? Same house? That's not a coincidence if this was deliberate. And with that, let's move on to the next story. This one is just as unsettling. My father's live-in caretaker has been systematically replacing his belongings with cheap fakes. He's starting to doubt his own sanity, and I don't know who to trust anymore. This next story is about trust and theft, and the slow burn horror of watching someone systematically dismantle an elderly man's sense of reality. It's the kind of evil that hides behind helpfulness and professional experience. 3 months ago, my brother hired Margaret, a live-in caretaker for my dad. He's 76, getting older. She seemed perfect on paper, but small things felt off immediately. Dad's reading glasses disappeared. Margaret bought replacements. His coffee mug vanished. She claimed she broke it. His Rolex cufflinks went missing. She was just organizing his room, she said. I'd call Dad every few days and he sounded uncertain. He'd ask if he'd ever owned things he clearly had. He couldn't trust his own memory anymore. 2 weeks ago, I was helping Dad with paperwork when I noticed something missing from his nightstand. His Omega watch. The one his father gave him for his 21st birthday. He'd worn it every day for 40 years. When I asked about it, Dad looked ashamed and confused. He couldn't remember when he'd last seen it. Margaret suggested maybe he'd sold it. That's when I started looking harder. On his nightstand sat a plastic CVS drugstore watch. I looked up Margaret's eBay seller account. She'd mentioned doing some reselling on the side. The second I pulled up her profile, I found it. My grandfather's Omega. Listed 3 days ago. Starting bid, $450. That watch had been on my dad's wrist for 40 years. And that's when OP realized this wasn't carelessness. It was systematic. It was deliberate. And it had been happening for 3 months. The Omega watch wasn't the only thing missing. Over the next week, I went through Dad's belongings more carefully. His Rolex cufflinks from his desk, gone, replaced with plastic fakes from Amazon. The pair of silver picture frames on his dresser with photos of my mom, missing, swapped out for cheap plated knockoffs that tarnished within days. His vintage Cartier pen, the one he'd used to sign contracts for 40 years, vanished, replaced with a ballpoint pen knockoff. I pulled up the eBay account again and cross-referenced the dates. The cufflinks sold for $270 on March 14th. The frames, $85 on March 22nd. The Cartier pen, $340 on March 25th. All within 2 weeks. All from her seller account. But what chilled me was Dad's response when I casually mentioned the missing cufflinks. He went quiet. Then he said maybe he'd sold them. Maybe he'd gifted them to someone he couldn't remember. He didn't think he'd done that, but he wasn't certain anymore. The doubt in his voice was new. His usual confidence, the certainty that had defined him my entire life, was cracking. He was beginning to question his own mind, and that's exactly what the caretaker had engineered. But I couldn't let it rest. I did what anyone would do. I started digging. I pulled up eBay and searched for seller accounts in her area. Found it in minutes. An account created 2 months ago. And there they were. The Omega, listed for $3,200, sold 3 weeks back. Photographed perfectly on the nightstand. The Rolex cufflinks, $1,800. The Cartier pen, $600. Silver frames, $15 each. And the prices weren't discounted. They were marked up 20 to 40% above market. This was liquidation. She'd told him she was organizing and photographing for insurance. He believed her. And the whole time she was converting his history into cash, one auction at a time. But what made my blood run cold was understanding what this really was. The missing things weren't the crime. What their absence did to his mind was. Every time he couldn't find something, every time he second-guessed himself, every time he asked if he'd sold it or misplaced it, she was breaking him down piece by piece, making him doubt his own memory, his own reality. And the comments section understood exactly what was happening. How do you know he didn't actually ask her to sell those things? You're assuming intent without hearing his side clearly. This needs to be investigated, not just accused. This is absolutely theft. She's committing felony larceny and elder abuse. You need to go to Adult Protective Services and the police today. Do not wait. My grandmother's caretaker did something similar. We didn't catch it for 2 years. The amount she'd sold off was in the tens of thousands. Don't delay. These people know exactly what they're doing. OP came back days later with an update. I went to the police with the screenshots. She was arrested yesterday, and I think I've destroyed my family. I finally told my father everything. I printed out the eBay listings, took pictures of the fake items next to the real ones, laid it all out on the kitchen table. His hands were shaking as he looked at them. He kept saying he knew something was wrong, that he wasn't crazy, that for months he'd been doubting himself, and it made him feel like he was losing his mind. When he realized what she'd been doing, methodically replacing his things and selling them, he started crying. Real, broken sobs. Decades of trusting his own judgment destroyed in an afternoon. He told me about conversations where she'd gaslight him, reassure him he'd just forgotten things, make him feel senile. That's when I knew I had to go to the police. I took everything to them. The screenshots, the eBay account, the price comparisons showing thousands of dollars in profit. They arrested her within 48 hours. But here's the part that shattered everything. My brother doesn't believe me. He thinks I'm manipulating our father, that I'm conspiring against the caretaker for some reason he can't name. He's refusing to acknowledge any of it. Dad's in pieces, I'm in pieces, and now I don't know if I made things worse by exposing it all. The comments came in fast. Jesus. The gaslighting is the scariest part. She's deliberately making him question his own mind. That's psychological abuse on top of theft. Please call someone today. Document everything. Screenshot every eBay listing with timestamps. Take photos of the boxes, the laptop screen. Don't confront her again. Let law enforcement handle it. This is the right move. If you confront again, she'll start deleting evidence or spinning a narrative. OP, you have a window right now. Get those screenshots, then call a lawyer before the police. They'll tell you exactly what to do and how to protect yourself. OP didn't wait. She took everything. The screenshots, the account confirmations, the photographs of the cheap fakes, straight to the police. I went to the police with the screenshots. She was arrested yesterday, and I think I've destroyed my family. The detectives moved fast. Search warrant came through within hours. They found $47,000 in cash hidden in her bedroom walls. Jewelry, watches, cufflinks, electronics scattered across her apartment. Items my father had stopped believing he owned. When they brought Dad in to identify his belongings, he stood surrounded by his own life and wept. Couldn't recognize half of it. Couldn't remember ever purchasing a third. 8 months of systematic gaslighting had done its work. Reality itself had become unreliable. His own mind had become unreliable. The charges are serious. Elder financial exploitation, systematic theft, fraud. She's facing years. And it should feel like justice. But the moment she was arrested, something else broke. My brother called. Said I fabricated the evidence. Said I manipulated the detectives, manipulated my father, conspired to destroy an innocent woman for reasons he refused to understand. He called me a liar to my face and walked out. My own brother. Dad's home now, but he's broken in a way the law can't fix. He doesn't trust his belongings, doesn't trust his own memory, doesn't trust his mind. He asked me last night if he could ever believe anything he remembers. I didn't have an answer for him. This is what weaponized trust betrayal does to an isolated elderly person. Not just the theft, the psychological destruction. The way a caretaker can dismantle someone's reality, one belonging at a time, until they question whether their own mind is trustworthy. I work in elder care. What you're describing is textbook elder exploitation and financial abuse. The isolation, the gaslighting, the systematic theft. Get him away from her immediately. And that is the last story for today.